News First at 5 starts with breaking news.
We start with breaking news this evening. A man in custody right now charged with second-degree murder of a child.
Those charges came just in the past hour. KOMU's Jonathan Katz joins us now live at the scene. Jonathan, you have some new information as well.
Sarah and Angie, good evening. We are live outside of the Morgan County Sheriff's Department where they just did release the latest details. And it turns out that these latest details, well, a lot more different than the story that we were told a little bit earlier on this afternoon. Now, we do want to show you a graphic right now. Prosecutors have charged 21-year-old TJ Presley with second-degree murder. Now, state troopers responded to the scene earlier this morning of a young boy reportedly hit by a car and killed. But now we're finding out that the 3-year-old was killed by his mom's boyfriend. And this turned out to have happened back in Stover. Now, previously, the Missouri State Highway Patrol said that this was a hit-and-run accident, but that turned out to be completely not true. And the Morgan County Sheriff's Department say the boy was dumped on the highway afterwards. Now, that is exactly why the Missouri State Highway Patrol was out at Highway 135 a little bit earlier on this afternoon, but it turns out that a car description they thought they had about a hit and run, turns out that that car description was absolutely bogus, because it turns out that the boyfriend's mom and the boyfriend's father had allegedly killed the young boy. So that is the very latest from Versailles this evening. Of course, we have much more in the story coming up for you tonight at 6. But for now, we are live in Morgan County. I'm Jonathan Katz, KOMU 8 News.
All right, Jonathan, thanks a lot. A Springfield man faces 2 life sentences today for statutory rape and sodomy. A judge convicted Alan Giles in November for having sexual intercourse and committing sex acts in 2007 with a girl who was under 14 years old at the time. Both Giles and the victim lived in Springfield but spent that summer in Audrain County.
Columbia firefighters are at the house fire right now, and it's their second trip to that house today. KOMU 8's Alexandria Stone has been following the story. She's live at the site with your first look.
That's right, Sarah and Angie. I was here earlier today when firefighters were finishing up an investigation on a fire at this house right behind me, and they determined that that fire was caused by an electrical problem in the basement. Our crews were here around 4:30 this afternoon when smoke started coming out of the garage. And shortly after, firefighters responded again. There's about 13 emergency vehicles around. You can see them behind me. They're still trying to figure out exactly what's going on. I spoke with a fire official with the Columbia Fire Department, John Metz, and he told me that they're really not sure what exactly is taking place. Now, one of the residents of this home was here around 4:15 boarding up the house and had left just before this second incident started. We'll be back at 6 with more details. I'm Alexandra Stone in Columbia, reporting live, KOMU 8 News.
Great, thanks, Alex. Facebook post today called for upgrades at the intersection of Calvert Hill Road and US 63, where a person died in an accident there yesterday. KOMU 8's Brian Bondas took some of your questions to MoDOT today, and he's live in the studio right now to give us some answers. Brian?
Richard Ballou first commented on our wall about the crash. He asked for the statistics for the intersection and if MoDOT would consider putting in an overpass. I found out both answers today. First, MoDOT says it is aware of the dangers presented by the Calvert Hill intersection, as well as similar ones on 63. In 2005 alone, there were 20 injuries in car accidents there. MoDOT responded that year by putting in flashing yellow lights before the intersection. In the last 6 years, there's been a total of 18 injuries and 2 deaths. But MoDOT says realistically, there's no money for an overpass at that spot.
For one thing, an interchange is really a multi-million-dollar project. You know, it's a fairly complicated process.
MoDOT's traffic engineer went on to say he is looking to improve safety, but funding is an issue.
Well, it turned out to be a beautiful day today with crystal clear skies and plenty of sunshine. Obviously, we've got a crystal clear scan on live Doppler 8 First Alert radar. So not much to tell you. Our evening hours are going to be very clear. Temperatures with those clear skies will drop off pretty quickly later on this evening, getting down to about 36 at 9 o'clock and into the low 30s by the time midnight rolls around. We'll be down to about 28 or 30 degrees for tomorrow morning's low temperature. Got a full forecast, including a look at the weekend, coming up on KOMU 8's First News at 5.
We had to look pretty quick this morning to see it, but we do have some new details on a state cyber scare this morning. KOMU 8's Megan Johnson's here with your first local report. Megan?
That's right. Capitol officials are still investigating who hacked and defaced the state official Missouri State website. Now, at 9:58 this morning, hackers went onto the website and they posted graphic war images onto mo.gov. Now, the state took those images down immediately. They have some pretty strict security there, and then they took the whole website down 2 minutes later. And as you can see now, the whole website is up. It was back up about half an hour later with none of those images there. Now, a state spokesperson said that the network remained secure and that no hackers had access to any state information. The investigation is still ongoing, and that's all. And I'll send it back to you.
Here we go. Okay,
thanks a lot.
so much.
The Federal Reserve Chairman shares a positive outlook for banks and an investigation into turkey abuse at a Butterball turkey plant.
Here's KOMU 8's Megan Milleras with your first look around the nation tonight.
Well, the Federal Reserve Chairman said today community banks have strengthened despite the unstable economy. Ben Bernanke spoke to a conference on community banking, commending the banks for taking on the risks that larger banks tend to avoid. He said community banks are well positioned to make good credit decisions. Several people face charges after an investigation into animal abuse at a Butterball turkey plant in North Carolina. One veterinarian pleaded guilty, admitting she tipped off the plant shortly before it was raided. This is some of the undercover video shot inside the plant. Butterball said it fired 4 employees in December when this footage surfaced. And a man convicted of carrying a gun into a Florida courthouse collapsed in court today after drinking what he said was poison. Upon hearing his guilty verdict, 60-year-old Marin Stroya drank liquid from an aspirin bottle and then collapsed as authorities let him out. There is no word on his condition. That's your first look at news around the nation. Now to KOMU8's Jamal Andrus with your First World Report.
All right, thank you, Megan. Today we're going to start in Korea, where the U.S. military today said it's preparing for the worst-case scenario on the Korean peninsula. Tensions are on the rise following the December death of North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. Kim Jong-il's heir is consolidating power, causing uncertainty between the two countries. Commanders say the 30,000 U.S. troops there are prepared for the worst. Next, we move to the Middle East, where the presidents of Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan met for a trilateral summit today in Islamabad. The focus was expected to be on steps Pakistan could take to facilitate peace talks with the Afghan Taliban. Leaders were also expected to discuss a proposed pipeline that would take natural gas from Iran to Pakistan. The U.S. is considering releasing 5 Taliban leaders as a starting point for talks. Lastly, we move to Europe, where air traffic controllers and ground personnel at Frankfurt's air hub are on strike today. The workers were on strike for several hours because the ground personnel and controller unions weren't able to agree on wages with the airport's operator. Airlines had to cancel at least 151 flights. That's your look around the world tonight.
They say there's nothing quite like that new car smell.
But the sweet smell of a new ride may not be good for you.
And how you parent could have a big impact on whether your teen starts drinking.
And after a very wet day yesterday, things have dried out and the forecast has improved nicely. That's next on KOMU8's First News at 5.
And you are looking high atop mid-Missouri, where the time is 5:07. We are chatting right now behind the scenes of this newscast with our Google Plus Hangout. And we're also live chatting on the streaming newscast tab at the top of KOMU.com. Join our cyber couch if you have a webcam. This is KOMU8 News First at 5 coverage you can count on.
The First Alert Weather Cam is brought to you by your Heart of Missouri Chevy dealers. Now, your live Doppler 8 First Alert weather with Chief Weathercaster Dave Schmidt.
Good afternoon to you. There's a look at a clear blue sky as we take a peek down Highway 63, just a little bit south of Columbia there. Turned out to be a really nice day and warmer than we thought it would be. I think we were forecasting something like 47, 48. One of the sure signs of the winter coming to an end, ladies, is the fact that our average high temperature keeps creeping up. Now that's 44.
And it's an indicator of it could be coming to an end. I like it.
And the days are getting longer.
And if you ever wondered whether Angie and I planned our outfits in advance, this should tell you no. It is the Red
Right.
Day on KOMU. Didn't you get the memo?
Well, people might know there's an event going on that prompted us to wear
Gala
red.
for Ronald
That's
McDonald
right.
House. Dave is going to be the wizard there tonight. We're all going to be there. Going to be a fun time raising some money for charity, and you know they're building that
It's a
new
good one.
house, so it's good to be there and support that. Hope to see you tonight if you're going.
That's right. Wear some red.
Your winter sniffles, it might be a cold.
But your winter worries may be turning to a more spring-like problem. We'll have those details coming up in a health report. In your health news today, researchers say strict parenting rules about alcohol could actually work, suppressing a teen's desire to drink. Studies have shown alcohol-related stimuli can trigger the impulse to drink among people who drink regularly. But when parents set strict rules for their teens before, it does appear to curb their impulse to drink, especially among teenage boys. Teens with more permissive parents were attracted to alcohol-related stimuli, so more likely to drink. Assessing the walking speed and hand grip strength of middle-aged patients could determine their risk of dementia or stroke later in life. In a study of men and women averaging 62 years old, those with a slower walking speed were 1.5 times more likely to develop dementia during the next decade. Also, patients older than 65 with a stronger hand grip had a 42% lower risk of stroke. Missouri saw some snow this week, but our mostly warm winter temperatures could trigger early allergies. A new study looked at winter temperatures across the country and found warmer temperatures and an earlier allergy season. Now, unfortunately, doctors are predicting this allergy season will last longer, even though it is starting earlier. And for so many new car buyers, that new car smell is one of their favorite features. Now, new research says it could also be toxic, though. After testing car interiors, researchers found traces of flame retardants, chromium, and lead. But they haven't determined how those chemicals are affecting your health, though. The report did find, though, that the 2012 Honda Civic had the most healthy car interior.
Wow, now I want to buy a car because it has a healthy car interior. Forget the gas mileage. Does it have a healthy interior? That's awesome. Changes to the way the sex offender registry works, and a Mid-Missouri school district offered to stop blocking some websites. Log on to facebook.com/KOMU8. Tell us what you think. Welcome back. A Missouri House member from Versailles wants to change the way sex offender registries work. Republican Rodney Shadd is sponsoring a bill that would exempt people from registering if they've been convicted of some non-contact offenses like indecent exposure. Only the names and information of people convicted of the most serious sex crimes would be listed on the state website. So what do you think about that? We asked you what you thought, and here's what you had to say. Bud Jones says not only they should be on the list should be posted at every park, every daycare, every school, every Chuck E. Cheese, every club, everywhere. And Casey Bruce went on to say, though, I think to a degree that he is right. For instance, several people have been caught peeing in public, even if out of reasonable plain view, have been added to this list. But I think non-contact is not very descriptive. So what do you think? You'll have to log on to Facebook and tell us whether or not you agree with that proposal. A federal judge offered a Mid-Missouri school district to stop using its internet filtering software to restrict access to educational sites. A U.S. district judge, however, issued that preliminary injunction today against the Camdenton R2 school district. The American Civil Liberties Union sued the district last fall on behalf of organizations whose predominantly educational websites are blocked by that filter. KOMU8's Allison Brown is here with that story. It's your online buzz.
Thanks, Sarah. We asked you online if school districts should have the right to block educational websites that could be considered controversial. So let's take a look at some of those comments. So far, the majority of people seem to think no. Dana says just because it might be controversial doesn't mean that children shouldn't be able to learn about it and form their own educated opinion. But Terry says absolutely, it should be a local decision. And if a local school district wants to protect its children, they should be allowed to. If you would like to join in on the conversation, please log on to KMU.com/Facebook.
More than 150 students from around the state competed at the Capitol today. Teams of students designed robots to help with food safety at the Missouri First Lego League Robot Competition. Sounds cool. The competition is meant to encourage teamwork, sportsmanship, and leadership.
Teamwork is more important than winning, and that if you're careful and you put in a lot of hard work, it will be fun even if you don't win. But winning can just make it a little bit more fun.
Robot ideas include one made bananas ripen 20% slower than usual. That's a helpful robot. One lucky dog may be bending some laws. This pup could have his creme de la creme served at a table.
A Missouri crime case is back in the headlines. We'll look at who's heading to court, and a school looks to shed light on an emerging threat for teens.
And speaking of teens, thankfully we won't see those temperatures for quite some time, but it does warm up on Friday. We'll have the latest forecast for you tomorrow morning.
And with those temperatures, get ready for the annual Great Backyard Bird Count. We'll have a preview. Join us for those stories and more tomorrow on KOMU 8 News Today.
And another quick look at the weather. The news is really good. The next 4 or 5 days looking really nice. Plenty of sunshine. Temperatures tomorrow in the low to mid 50s. Will cool off a little bit over the weekend. Saturday and Sunday's high in the low, perhaps the mid 40s.
The sad details of a 3-year-old child's death from this morning are continuing to unfold right now. KOMU 8's Jonathan Ketz is updating us with the latest.
Sarah and Angie, good evening. We are live outside the Morgan County Sheriff's Department right now, where the sheriffs have just released the latest information. It turns out, though, that latest information a lot more different than what was previously reported. Now, we do want to show you a video here of this latest information. Prosecutors right now have charged 21-year-old TJ Presley with second-degree murder. Now, state troopers responded to a scene early this morning of a young boy that was reportedly hit by a car and killed. But now we're finding out that 3-year-old boy, whose name is Little Blake Litton, turns out that he was killed allegedly by his mom's boyfriend back at their house in Stover. So coming up at 6, we're going to talk about a little bit more about how this boy was allegedly killed. Of course, that coming up for you here in just a little bit. For now, though, we are live in Morgan County this evening. I'm Jonathan Ketz, KOMU 8 News.
All right, Jonathan, thanks for bringing us that information. A champion dog had his very favorite meal at New York's finest after a big win at New York City's Westminster Dog Show. The City Health Department says it will grant a 1-day waiver of its rule against pets in restaurants. Malachi is the name. The Pekingese enjoyed a private room at Sardi's in the Theater District. He had chicken and his favorite. That was his favorite. The New York Health Commissioner will grant a 1-day waiver to Sardi's for next year's champ as well.
For Malachi, see you at 6.